All right. Hi, Gaga. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Vonvo.com to discuss human rights, issues inside of Iran. Today's date is March 17th, 2013. I just wanted to go over two quick ground rules before we got started. The first is that right now this conversation is being recorded, and after the recording is completed, we'll be uploading this video to the internet to our YouTube channel. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then on top of that, here at Vonvo, we're all about our discussions staying both civil and valuable. So we don't want there to be any personal attacks against anyone in case another speaker comes into the room or anything. Are you fine with that ground rule?
Yes.
Okay, great. So then let's get our conversation started. Would you mind just telling anyone who's inside the chat room right now and anyone who might watch this video later on a quick background about yourself?
Sure. Hi, Max. Thank you for inviting me to this program. Well, as you can see, I'm using anonymous name, and that is because of what I am doing right now might put myself and my family in danger. So I need to be careful on how I approach this. I am a human rights fighter. I have been working with human rights many years, but ever since the uprising in Iran 2009, my main activity have been basically for Iran. I am not inside of Iran. I'm outside, and yeah, I don't know what else.
That's okay. Yeah, no, not a problem. And I mean, thank you for obviously, even though you have to cover up your screen and everything, for taking the time to speak on Vonvo, because I think it's important for people to know what's actually going on in these other parts of the world. But would you mind just easing our way into things? Would you mind just explaining to people exactly what issues take place in regards to human rights? Can you maybe give us a background on this subject at hand in regards to human rights in Iran?
Oh, yeah, I can do that. It's actually a tragedy, being that the first human rights regulation in the world, in the history of the world, comes from Iran. And now it is a country where it lacks almost all the basics. Within the last 33 years, they managed to bring back the country several centuries, and it's a real shame. I was born right after the revolution.
Yeah.
And it didn't take long after the revolution started that I'm sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. Okay, it didn't take long after the revolution that the hardliners started to show what it was gonna happen, really. Basically, the people inside of Iran have no rights whatsoever. Even the rights that are stated by law don't really apply because of all the corruption in the system. So they can do whatever they want to do, and they do whatever they want to do because they can twist and change everything the way they want. But especially for women and children. For example, you have, there is by law, a man is allowed to do whatever he wants with his child or women up till the point that he kills them. If he kills them, he has to be punished. But up till then, he can do whatever. He can torture them. He can put them in isolate. He can starve them. He can do whatever. And that is a right he has by law.
Right. Wow. That's
What else?
That sounds quite crazy. And what I was going to say is, if at any point, during the conversation you don't feel comfortable answering a certain question, like, just feel free to let me know, and we could just move on to a new question. So, I don't want you to feel nervous about that part.
Okay, thank you.
So you talk about really in terms of inside the home, really anything can be done to a woman and a child by a husband inside of a home. So would I guess that takes us into my next question, which was what is the role of women inside of Iran, and can you kind of inform us on that?
Yeah, it's a real shame that also, because women have always had a big part of everything in Iran. Even though they are seemingly excluded right now, they are still quite major. Maybe not so much in politics and official positions, but for example, the biggest part of the people that was joining in on the uprisings in 2009 were the women. The only opposition group the government have not been able to suffocate are the women. The more they imply rules on them, the more they arrest and harass and torture them, the more the women actually become more and more extreme. You can see that if you Google images of, for example, Tehran today, and you will see the female, even though they are under the Islamic law of hijab, they cover less and less of their hair. They have more and more makeup on. They have tighter and tighter clothes, and it's a form of opposition that the government have been working hard against, but they are actually not able to suffocate it. Female in Iran is by law not protected at all. Female in Iran, for example, is worth as half as much as a man. If I had a brother and our parents would die, I would get I would inherit half as much as he would. If I was a witness to a crime, it had to be another woman with me to testify. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good enough, because my testimony would be regarded as only half a person.
Really?
Yeah, the stronger they try to bring us down, the stronger the female actually rise up and fight against it.
So where does this, this concept of, women being worth less, and, it seems like children obviously not really having any sort of role. Where does this all sort of stem from? Did something in particular happen years back? Is it something which recently took place? Can you just give us some insight into where this all sort of comes from?
It is the Sharia law. Unfortunately, it's related to Sharia law and their translation of Islamic law.
So can you go into?
I'm sorry. I have to say that when, for example, when that law came with Muhammad in his time, women were worth zero. So actually, what he did then was to bring up the value of women, but that does not apply for today's society.
Right. So could you give us some insight into, what the Sharia law actually is, and why it's so detrimental to the people inside of Iran? I'm sorry, one more time? Can you give us some insight into what Sharia law actually is, for those who might not know, and why it's so detrimental, why it's such a bad thing for your country.
Well, Sharia law would be, to put it easily, would be, for example, the Ten Commandments of the Christianity, but in an Islamic way. And then it has been manipulated from hand to hand, from mullah to mullah. They translate it in a form that suits them. What Sharia law, if it's good or bad, I will not get into that. But what it has done to my country is a tragedy, because it had, as I mentioned earlier, brought us back centuries. It is primitive, it is degrading, and it is used as a mean of manipulation and control.
Right. So basically, when it comes to, so where does, can you kind of give us a background then into the governmental structure inside of Iran, because that's something that I've kind of been really confused on for a while, how exactly the government really works. You have Ahmadinejad, who's always in the news, but then I know that there's some more like religious leaders who are really have a major stake in what goes on inside of Iran. Would you mind explaining to us that? Because I'm sure it has some ties to this Sharia law, perhaps.
Yeah, it's well, I haven't really studied the political science of Iran, but I can tell you what I know of it. I might be wrong, but I will. Here goes. You have the supreme leader, which is Khamenei, and he is basically the leader. He is the dictator. He is the one. I mean, even Ahmadinejad, whatever he does, it goes back to Khamenei at some point. If Khamenei absolutely do not agree with what he's doing, Ahmadinejad cannot do it. Ahmadinejad, being the prime minister, will be shuffled. He would be suffocated. But also, you have also I think it's called the Guardian Council, which also is a bunch of mullahs who also are highest in power, but still Khamenei is above them all. Khamenei has veto on everything, the supreme leader.
Who is that exactly?
Ali Khamenei was a close friend of Khomeini, the first supreme leader, the leader of the revolution in '79. And under Khomeini, he also acted as the president of the country when Mursi was the prime minister. And when Khomeini died, he was then elected by the Guardian Council as the new supreme leader.
Right. So what I was next going to bring up is, so basically then what should people understand about Ahmadinejad, since he's the one that's always appearing on TV, but yet he doesn't even have, the this veto power which you're just talking about. Is he sort of just like, excuse the expression, like a puppet figure, and he's just like the person who appears on TV to represent Iran ultimately? Like, does he have much power at all in the end?
Yeah, he absolutely is a puppet figure, but Ahmadinejad is also extremely smart. For example, when he comes to the UN meeting in New York and all the absurd, crazy insults he blabber out, is basically a political game. He is diverting the audience away from the issues that really matter. For example, the nuclear program or the Iran human rights issues. Instead of the international society, instead of putting pressure on topics in conversation with him, they just sit there and are in shock because he would say something like Holocaust didn't exist or we don't have gay people in Iran. It's actually a really smart maneuver of him. And also, yes, he is a puppeteer. He is a puppet, and Khamenei is the puppeteer. But Ahmadinejad, since he stole the election in 2009, have been putting more and more of his own people from the Basiji group also into really important positions. And he is there is a lot of tension between Khamenei and Ahmadinejad, and there are rumors about military coup from Ahmadinejad, but there is nothing certain yet.
So can you just elaborate on that a bit? You know, for those who for the first time might hear that and not understand exactly what you mean by that. You're saying that there's tension right now regarding, you know, the higher power religious leaders and, you know, Ahmadinejad?
Yes, there absolutely is. Okay, elaborate. Honestly, I can't do that right now because it's been a while since I read those articles. I will read them again, and I can talk about that the next time I come on this show. But right now I can't. But
that's okay.
I'm sorry if it's too hard to wait for next time. If you Google it, you will absolutely find articles on it.
That's fine. No, not a problem. So what I was going to say next is, one second, let me just mute. So what I was going to say next is, you know, there's this idea behind, I mean, I don't want to focus too much on it, but just because you're bringing up so many different points regarding Iran, you know, there's this whole talk about, you know, their nuclear program. What's your take on, because that's what gets the most media play here in the U.S. I mean, ultimately, do you think that that's also sort of like a puppet game where they're just focusing all this attention on their nuclear program, and who knows if they're actually really building a nuclear bomb, which you can give us your insight on, but is that just really to detract attention away from these human rights violations?
Both yes and no. In my personal opinion, Iran, I mean, I have read articles that, I read an article especially in Iran many years ago, where there was this journalist group that went on site to site, and then they asked specific questions one place and another question another place, so that it wasn't really obvious what they were asking, but they got enough information to set it up that basically proves that with the resources we have, even though if they kill themselves with the nuclear program, they won't be able to get enough energy that makes it worth it. They're saying that they're doing this for energy, for electricity, and blah, 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 but there is not enough resources that would actually prove that that is necessary for Iran, especially considering that we have so much gas and oil and so much deserts, so we can make electricity, for example, from solar power. So all this fuzz about it, you know, we have the right of nuclear power, is, yeah, it's not for energy or electricity. I personally think that they do aim at making a bomb. And, oh God, do I not want them to have that bomb? But again, what makes it a problem, I think what they do with this, not for the international community, but for to manipulate the Iranians themselves, because most Iranians are really offended of the fact of that the international community is basically saying that you are denied this. And I think the government knows that, and they are using that to manipulate the pride and ego of the Iranians so they can unite against the international society in this matter.
Right. Right. So really, what kind of would you know? It's just rather interesting. So ultimately, the way you're describing it, it seems like there's a whole, it's not just Ahmadinejad as a puppet, but it's also just like this enormous game which Iran, has been playing for a while now, where they seem to. Are there any other things that like they're trying to remove focus away from by, having Ahmadinejad, go to the UN and make crazy remarks and comments, and then just strictly focus like attention on nuclear bomb or is it nuclear power? Is ultimately the attention that is focused on those items just to move focus away from the human rights issues, or are there other things which people don't know about Iran which are even past human rights that they should know?
Yeah, of course. For example, the drug trafficking, the support of the terrorist groups, hiding of terrorist members in the country, things like that. They have their hands in a lot of dirt, and they do what they can to divert the attention away from those real matters.
Right.
Like, for example, there is no way that, okay, let me put it this way. In Iran, you can even get killed if you drink alcohol. You can be whipped to death for alcohol. But in the law, there is nothing that says anything about, for example, opium. And from what I remember, from what I have been told, most of the opium that moves from Afghanistan towards the West does go through Iran. Then we are actually talking about the biggest, this used to be the Silk Road, yeah? We used to bring saffron and silk to the West, and now we are opening the road for the biggest supply of heroin to the West.
So you're basically saying that not only inside of Iran there's a human rights violation of you can't drink alcohol or you get killed, but basically that it's becoming like this I've heard of like opium inside of Afghanistan. I've heard of that. I didn't really realize that that's also an enormous I guess trade item inside of Iran. So you're saying that basically people inside of Iran won't get persecuted for using, let's say, opium and drugs, but yet for drinking alcohol you can be sentenced to death?
Yeah, but it's sentenced to death for alcohol, for drinking alcohol, no. But if you have a lot of alcohol, you can get that. Yeah, but you can be beaten accidentally to death because they don't really care about how hard they beat you, and they will beat you if you get caught in drinking alcohol. And yeah, because like right now you have this ridiculous amount of drug abusers in Iran. Because people are extremely depressed, they don't have any other ways of to breathe really, and they just need a way out. And this is the easiest way, and this is the easiest way for the government also, because addicted people do not really fight, they don't really oppose, they don't really read and educate themselves and gather and start uprisings. You understand? It's easier to control them.
Right. So inside of the text chat, you'll notice there's a few people making comments. I mean, Larry suggests, is it a religious? He states that it's a religious theocracy ruled by very few men, which has taken all the power from the people. The world has ignored the protest over the last election for the president. I mean, do you agree with statements like that? Are those like good overall generalizations of your country?
I absolutely do. I was here outside of the country of Iran. I was very, very active of the uprisings in 2009, and I can tell you that it took Yeah, the world paid attention for almost 3 weeks until Michael Jackson died, and everything was forgotten. And no matter how hard we worked, we could not bring the issue back to the media. But the truth is that the first electronic revolution started with Iran, and Arabic Spring, as they call it, also started in Iran. The entire wave of the revolutions that started in the Middle East and afterwards were inspired by the happenings that happened in Iran. And people went out on those streets for months and months. For 10 months, they were out there being beaten and killed. And I mean, the crazy stories I have, the crazy stories I've reported, the things I have seen, people in the world don't know. And that's an ache in my heart, really.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from. I mean, I had a feeling coming into this discussion it was going to be quite informative for me, and it definitely is. So my next question would be, and unless there's anyone who's posted a good question inside the text chat that I see, and I don't see anything, although someone's asking something about the nuclear program, so we could bring that up in a second. My next question would be what is your take on the role the media plays in terms of, the situation in Iran? You bring up this puppet concept. Can you just give us your take on how the media does a good or bad job of portraying what goes on inside of Iran, and maybe perhaps, explain how a tool such as Vonvo, might be able to, help change things inside, inside of this country.
Do you mean the Western media?
Yes. And then if you want to talk about, the Middle Eastern media as well.
Yeah. Well, the Middle East, I mean, both medias are pretty biased, aren't they? The media in Iran, for example, Press TV, is just pure manipulation and propaganda. But then again, you could say that a lot about the media in the West also, because, and this is such a shame, because media is supposed to be the power of a government, This is where we regulate all the leaders to do not be corrupt, and we inform people of what is happening, keep the truth out there. But I think true journalism has died. I mean, I see that people are acting more as journalists than what the media and the journalists themselves are doing. They report on truths. Like, after you told me, I've been reading on the comments, like, what comments here is, I'm competing with the Kardashians. I don't even know who they are, but I guess it must be one of the trendy things. It must, I don't know, but I think I could talk about this matter for hours, really, because it's one of the things I work really thoroughly with. The manipulation of the media have turned the people in the West into a bunch of apathetic people that they don't really think for themselves anymore. And this is a big responsibility for the media to have. And when they don't even they have no morale in it anymore, then of course they will portray whatever matter the way it is needed for their own pockets, basically.
Right, and so you brought up before the idea that you hope, some people have been posting in the text chat items regarding the nuclear program. You brought up before that you truly wish that they are not, you think that they are building a bomb, but you really hope that they are not and that they aren't able to. Can you explain, why that is?
Well, because I viewed it, the thing is, these people in power in Iran, they have been abusing whatever time they have had. so extremely, so vulgarly, so with so much evil in it that there is no other place in the world for them. So as it is right now, there is no way to get rid of them with blood flowing, because they know if they lose this power, they have nowhere to go. It's about life and death for them. Now imagine having this crazy bunch of people with a nuclear bomb as well. How will that be good for any parts, either the Iranian people or the world?
Right. I totally hear you. Gaga, what I was going to ask next is Rick inside the text chat asked, can you comment on whether Iran is really backing the coup inside of Syria? That strikes me as insane. If Syria falls, so does Lebanon, and Iran would be next. Can you give us your opinion on that?
That they would be backing up the coup in Syria. But from what I know, they are supporting Bashar. Honestly, I have not read enough on that situation to be able to comment on it.
Okay, no problem. So do you think, though, in terms of the nuclear program, that even if they are developing a bomb, do you actually think that they would commit national suicide by using it on a nation with hundreds of nukes? And I guess Rick is referring to the U.S. or maybe Israel, let's say, one of those two. What are your thoughts on that? Referring to the U.S. or maybe Israel, let's say, one of those two. What are your thoughts on that?
No. Because even though they are crazy, they are also extremely smart.
Right. So basically, in the end, you're kind of, although you're talking about how you don't want them to have it, and then thinking that they wouldn't use it in the end. Ultimately, then it goes back to this whole game that they're playing, and it's really just a matter of a major international game that they're trying to play.
Yeah, and having leverage.
Right. And in just 1 second, I see Ryan actually messaged me. So let me see here. 1 second. If he's okay. Okay. Feel free to. I think Ryan's going to jump on, so perhaps he can take part in the discussion. So let's discuss one other item regarding human rights. You talk about that Iran basically has set itself back centuries due to this concept of Sharia law and things along those lines. I mean, can you kind of discuss what needs to change in order for people to receive their human rights? And can you talk about what really what? Hey Rick, how you doing?
Can you hear me?
Hello, Rick.
Hi, Gaga. Can you hear me? I've got to turn my sound up, I think. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Rick. Do you hear us?
Yes.
Rick, Gaga has a bad echo on her end, so you got to mute her camera if you're speaking.
I think can you still hear me?
I can hear you, but Gaga has a bad echo on her end, so you have to mute her camera if you're if you're speaking.
All right, I'm gonna try to mute. I guess I got two mics open. I'm gonna try to mute.
Gaga, are you there?
Yes.
So I was just going to ask, in terms of can you discuss how Iran can bring itself back from the centuries that it set itself back on by implementing Sharia law? I mean, what can be done to bring back people's human rights and whatnot?
Honestly, I think we are past the stage of reforms. It's not possible. Khatami really did try to bring in the reforms, but as I said, when everything you decide to do, basically, if Khamenei do not agree, the supreme leader, it doesn't matter. No matter how hard Khatami tried, he couldn't really bring in any reforms that really mattered. So we are past the stage of reforms. The only thing that would put Iran back in its state would be a revolution. This the Islamic Republic of Iran needs to go.
Right. So, what is your take, Rick? Are you there?
What is your take, Rick? Are you there?
Okay, I think Rick's camera or microphone might be.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. Rick, you might have to get those headphones, Rick.
Computer sound and the Vonvo sound.
Rick, I think you have to get headphones.
It hasn't worked in the past, but I'll try it. Let me go get them.
Okay. Gaga, so what I was going to ask you next then is, can you talk about Iran and, their impact on the Middle East region and, relations with some of the other surrounding countries, relations with Israel, because that often gets brought up in the media. I mean, ultimately, is that also another whole game and puppet show of, them actually not even having a huge stake in the region, and rather it's just a game they play to make it seem like they do have a major stake in the region?
But no, they are actually major in the region. They are.
Okay.
And the entire Israel thing is really silly. I don't know enough about it, but I know the background we have. I mean, Persia brought in all the Jews of the world and protected them for 300 years when everybody else wanted to have them off. We have a really strong historical relationship with the Jews. So this hatred, it goes again back to the extreme way of translating the Quran and using this as a system of political games. But Iran, if I understood your question correctly, you wanted to know if they actually had the state of power in the region as they do. Yes, I do think they do. Absolutely. They are way too central not to have it.
Right. Okay, let me see if anyone inside the text chat has posted any good questions, and we can try and address them. Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions inside of the text chat. So let me go back to my list of certain items. So, Gaga, what can you give us your thoughts and feelings on Ahmadinejad himself? And give us sort of, from your take, what do you think, the overall feelings are inside of the country? Like, you're obviously outside of the country, but people inside the country, I mean, do they have to can they not speak anything badly about him, and so ultimately they'll never say a bad thing about him? Or do you think that there are actually some dedicated people inside the country that do support him?
Well, you told me not to use wild language, so how am I supposed to say what I really feel about him? Oh, yeah. No, he does have supporters in Iran. He does have supporters with extremist fascist groups, for example, the Basiji. But those are not they are the minority of the people. Yeah, you're not allowed to talk against Ahmadinejad in public, but in every home, there is no home that people praise Ahmadinejad. Everybody is hungry. Everybody is afraid. Everybody is terrorized. Everybody is tired. Every home have bled. Everybody has a family member they have lost or are in prison or are tortured. It's the fate of us all. So no, there is no praise going on for Ahmadinejad. Only his extremist little group. And also, like you see, for example, back to the media where they show these rallies that is pro-Ahmadinejad, they've actually been proven that they go out into villages and they tell people you're going to lose your job, your income, your food if you do not come to the rally. But if you come, we are going to give you juice and sandwich. So they are blackmailing people to come to the rallies to pretend that they are supporting him.
How you doing, Ryan?
How you doing, Ryan?
Well, I was doing pretty good till about a second ago. I can't get my computer to work here, and my internet's been spotty. It's not Vonvo.
That's okay. Did you have something? I know you were originally scheduled to speak with Gaga. Do you have anything? Do you have anything that you wanted to mention to Gaga that you felt that you wanted to bring up today?
No, she's like she's switched on when it comes to this Iran stuff. Like she knows a lot. The main concern, like what I was going to talk about, is people that are like using Press TV really understand like what Press TV is. Yeah, you know what? Sorry guys, this is my internet.
That's okay.
So you want me to talk about Press TV?
Yeah, go ahead. I go ahead and discuss that.
Well, Press TV is basically the media source of the Iranian Islamic Republic of Iran. Using that as a viable source is not possible, really, because this is coming from people that will use any mean possible for their to manipulate, and yeah, Press TV is basically propaganda TV.
Right. So I think some individuals in the text chat were asking about how like Jews are treated inside of Iran. Are there any Jews inside of Iran? I guess some people are interested in hearing about Iran and Israel relations, which I want to think are pretty minimal. But what do you know about like a Jewish population inside of Iran and how that has any connection between relationships between the two countries?
Well, I know that there are still actually there are some Jews in Iran. I don't know any personally, but from what I have heard in the society, they are appreciated members of the society. They are good with money. Yeah, well, my favorite part of Tehran is run by the Jews there, and again, jewelry stores. Yeah, we have normal relationships with them. We are people and people, and we have several centuries of history together. So this game with Israel is a political game that has nothing to do with us people. We are not a part of that.
Right. Okay, great. Well, Gaga, what I was going to say is, we've been speaking for just over 45 minutes now, and ultimately we can have you back on again to we kind of covered a wide variety of issues, which typically happens here on Vonvo. But what I'd like to say is, if you want to really just answer one last question that I think would be important is, what message would you like to send to the rest of the world and anyone who watches this video, about the country which you grew up in and what they should truly know about it?
after so many years outside, I still feel that Iran is my home. And still, if Iran would become free today, I would go home. My country is truly a beautiful place. It is source for so much culture and love and beauty and health. And yeah, this is my country. The people, the ordinary people, we are the country. This crazy puppet show that is sitting in the government does not present us at all. And we need people in the world, and especially the West, realize that and do not fall for the propaganda in their own media. We are not a bunch of terrorist barbarians standing in the street for hours every day and screaming death to America. Actually, you will not find a country in the world that have more obsession about Americans than Iranians. Iranians love America. Their entire idol for life is America. We need to open up our own arms because the politicians are not doing it. So we need to try to reach each other and get to know each other. Also, Max, I want to just say one more thing because I see in the chatting area that Nadim is saying that Zardoshts and Jews and Christians are being well protected in Iran, and that is a lie. No, they are not. Just a few weeks ago, they executed some Christians. You have so many Christian priests in prison. They are not well protected at all. But nobody is well protected in Iran. So just basically saying that anybody is well protected in Iran is a blunt lie. The only one that are well protected are the guys in power that have been basically raping the country for all form of resources and filling up their own bank accounts. If the world wants to do anything to help, they do not need to sit and threaten us with their bombs. What they can do is, for example, freeze those bank accounts in Swiss or outside of Iran. They can retract their diplomatic rights. They are means to help us. But threatening us with bombs, it's just not constructive. People need to open up their eyes. Thank you for having me here, though.
Yeah, no problem. It was it was a pleasure to have you, Gaga, and we would definitely love to have you back on again. We can obviously communicate via Facebook, and thank you so much for your time, and really informing our viewers and people who will watch this video, because I'm sure there will be people who watch it that will get a better sense of what's actually going on over there.
Yeah, it was really great to be here, and I would like to come back.
We would love to have you, so we'll definitely arrange for that to happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Max.
All right, have a good day.